It's 24 minutes to 8. From 2021 onwards, the UK will be able to implement its own approach to the fishing industry, free for the first time in 40 years of the EU's common fisheries policy. That's how the government is framing the proposals to be released later today. There are two key issues: access to our waters for boats from other countries and access to the EU market for our fishermen. 3/4 of their catch is exported to EU countries at the moment. Well, Bertie Armstrong, Chief Executive of the Scottish Fishermen's Federation, is in our Aberdeen studio, and we're joined on the line by Gerard van Balsfort, who's chairman of the European Fisheries Alliance. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Morning.
Bertie Armstrong, let's talk about quotas first of all. What percentage of fish caught in our waters should be allocated to British boats, do you think?
Well, the way to start is to have a look at what other coastal states do in the steady state under international law. Norway retains 85% of the fish in its waters for the domestic catching. Iceland, 95%. We retain 40% of the fish in our waters. That's clearly under the changed governance that will happen with Brexit, a very severe distortion.
So you are looking for a significant uplift, are you, on the 40%?
We're looking for a significant uplift, but what we're not asking for is for the European industry to fall off a cliff. That's actually what happened to us when we got turned out of Iceland when the laws changed 40 odd years ago. We're not asking for that to happen to the European industry, but we do want a managed adjustment backed to something that looks more normal.
Okay, but give me an idea of what that would represent. There must be a figure in mind,
yes,
which seems fair to you and workable.
Yes, the numbers are thus. The present UK catch is worth not too far shy of £1 billion, north of 900,000 pounds. I beg your pardon, 900 million pounds. That's 40%. So if we move away from that, towards where Iceland, for instance, sits, then that would double that figure. That is a really significant input to the coastal communities around the United Kingdom, and a really significant input to jobs.
But that Iceland figure is 95%.
Yes.
So is that what you want? You want 95% of the fish caught in British waters to be allocated to British boats?
We need to be realistic, and this will be a negotiation. It will be a negotiation from a position of tremendous strength, because international law says sovereignty over the resource in our waters, or in anyone's coastal state waters, falls to that coastal state. So we will be negotiating from a position of strength. It's wrong to put figures on it now, because that looks like you're either accepting second best or you're going for something unrealistic. What we want is a managed adjustment in negotiation with our European friends, but way away from 40% in our waters. That's just plain. That's not the right thing to do.
Let me turn then to Gerard van Balsfort. What do you make of what Bertie Armstrong's putting forward?
Yeah, well, he's good morning. He is comparing the situation of the UK with Iceland, and Iceland is really an island sitting way off ourselves in the Atlantic Ocean. The UK, still amidst us, is really very close to the European Union, to Ireland and the continent. So you really can't compare a situation where Iceland has a lot of autonomous stocks, so only owned by themselves, so to say, and the UK, who shares about 100 fish stocks with their European friends on both sides, Ireland and the continent. So just to make this comparison, to follow the Icelandic example, it's I would say a little bit far short.
But equally, it doesn't look fair, does it, that only 40% of the fish caught in our waters can be taken by British fishermen?
Well, fair is, you have to not only to look at the access to fishing grounds and the sharing of quota, you also have to look at other elements like management of stocks, like access to markets and a free trade agreement, which the UK also wants to have, of course, with the EU. What is fair? I mean, there are many fishermen who fish for generations, even I would say decades and hundreds of years, in waters which are now going to become British waters. So is it fair to to abolish, let's say, entrance for fishermen who have been there since 1500. So a fair is a kind of a subjective thing, to be honest. The European fishermen, they see, of course, the fact that the UK exits, and then they have more autonomy on their waters. Not entirely absolute authority. I mean, they have to collaborate with us, the other coastal states, on management of stocks. That's a UN obligation, but still they have more legal power there, for sure. But on the other hand, we need each other really to manage all these stocks together. If we do it wrong, we all lose, of course, because then you badly manage stocks. And on the other hand, we have the market, which is so interesting and important for the UK.
Bertie Armstrong, just a final thought from you. Do you trust the government not to negotiate away what you want? You know, the industry was disappointed already earlier this year because the common fisheries policy will stay in place during the entire transition period.
Well, we're certainly calling for backbone to face down the EU's starting position. But with regard to what Gerard has just said, there is a parallel with Iceland, because the laws, as they apply to Iceland's waters, will be the laws that apply to the UK's waters. And the fact that people have been fishing there since in our waters since the 15th century is of no relevance, because if that was relevant, we would still be fishing in Iceland. When the law changed, we were turned out. Now, we're not saying turn out the European industry. We're just saying move away from the perfectly ridiculous the perfectly ridiculous situation.
Bertie Armstrong, I'm sorry, we're going to have to leave it there.